This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing tonight? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barretts is my faithful engineer. And have we got a show for you tonight? Yes, we do. We're going to start off with a couple of authors who have found ways to sell their books. Now, I know sell. That's a dirty four-letter word for some of you. And I just want to say, while it's great to finally write a book, and it helps to tune in here every week and hear how other authors have managed to overcome obstacles to get the job done. Once it's done, it helps to sell it. All right, here we go. L.C. Rogers has published several children's books, and now she's published her first novel. It's called Pocketbook Diaries, and while she considers herself a writer first, she's also a very successful salesperson. And as you're about to find out, that sales experience comes in really handy. Let's start with your book, Elsie.
Okay, well, Pocketbook Diaries is the gripping tale of 15-year-old Zaire Ryan, who one day discovered the mysterious and hidden pocketbook of her great-grandmother, which leads to her unlocking the secrets of a mystical world. Afrodan is the name of the mystical world, and Zaire is really captivated by the life of her great-grandmother, who was a very interesting woman. She was famous. She was a model in her time, and Zaire never got to meet her. She died 1 month before she was born. So throughout her life, she's basically on the discovery of trying to find out exactly who this woman was and what she was all about. Well, one day when she's unloading the attic to give boxes to charity, she discovers this very well-decorated box. And when she opens it, it's a sealed letter is inside. And when she opens up the letter, she discovers that it's from her great-grandmother. And in the letter, her grandmother speaks of a secret and that she can only tell it now after her death. Also in the letter was a riddle. That same riddle was inscribed on the bottom of the purse. So Zaire spends the next couple of days trying to figure out what this riddle means. And the riddle was, when the leaves are at their best and the moon first lights the way, then shall you come, but you cannot stay. But when she finally unlocks the riddle, it unleashes this pocketbook, and she ends up being sucked inside to the secret world.
That's great. I want to go there. I want to go there.
Oh, you definitely want to be in this world. It's so amazing, and it has everything that you can possibly imagine. In this book, mystery, adventure, love, just everything that you want wrapped into one book. And it's exciting. And this is part one, so there's more to come. So what made me come up with this idea is laziness, a reclining chair, and a 7-year-old. Literally, that's how I came up with this idea. I was visiting my grandmother in Boston, and during that visit, one of my brothers came over, and he brought his children with him. And so I was hanging out in her reclining chair, relaxing in it. And I needed my pocketbook at one point, and it was on the other side of the room. And I asked my niece, who was 7 years old at the time, could she go and pick up my pocketbook? So when she picks up my pocketbook, she says, "Oh, my God, Auntie Rain, there's an entire world in this purse," because it was so heavy. And I kid you not, that's how it happened. And from there, this whole story birthed. It's crazy.
And this is leading to a whole series.
Exactly. Yes, it's an entire series. I'm actually almost finished with the second book now. The first book is the full title is Pocketbook Diaries, The Escape from Afrodan. The second book is called Pocketbook Diaries, The Unveiling. And I'm almost done with that one.
Geez, how did you find Paige?
I didn't find Paige. Someone brought Paige to me. Someone had recommended that I submit my manuscript to Paige, and that's what I did. You know, Paige is amazing, and so many events coming up. It's crazy. I got to tell you, I've been really blessed throughout this. I have several book signings coming up at Barnes & Noble. I have one in South Carolina and Pennsylvania, Florence, South Carolina, Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. I have an event that the library is doing for me in Maryland. I have an event coming up in D.C. as well. So just a lot of things, a lot of doors have been opening.
So tell me what you did. How did you set up all of these dates?
If I was to give authors any advice at all, they have to understand that you're not just an author. You're a salesperson. You are the salesperson of your own work. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to miss the opportunity that you have to grow as an author. And I think for me, one thing that worked in my behalf is that I've been in sales throughout my career. And so it's in me to go out and know how to explain why you want to read my book and explain why you want to have me in your store doing book signings and all these different things like that. You know, even though the publisher obviously does help you out, you are the best representation of your work. And so that's what I do. You know, I'm out there, I'm talking in the community. I talk to different people. You know, I am, you know, congregating amongst other authors and people who are, you know, librarians and people who, you know, are working at bookstores and different things like that. And then that's how the opportunity arrives. Definitely being a salesperson of my own work is what is allowing me to be able to go out and set these interviews and being able to be in stores doing book signings and at different events for sure.
Geez, Elsie, I can feel your enthusiasm, and I hope all of our authors hear you. It's been said so many times on this show. Nobody's going to sell your book better than you are. All right. Eileen Thea Mammon is a mother of 4 grown children, and she's at a point where she can do what she likes to do, and she likes to write for children. It's how Dressy Yet Messy Jessie was born, Eileen.
It's about a little girl who enjoys being all dressed up, and she's going to celebrate her aunt's wedding, which is a big family affair. So she was given the honor as a flower girl, and she was one of the first ones done. And everybody's making a big fuss over the bride, and she's totally bored. So it is raining outside, so she's kind of sitting by the window, kind of wasting her time. She should have had some other form of entertainment, but no one was really paying her any attention. So all of a sudden it stops raining. So she's looking outside and there's a rainbow and it's getting nice and clear. And it wouldn't really matter very much, even though she was told to stay nice and clean and indoors. But if she just slipped outside just for a little while, the time would go so much more quickly. And she does. She's having such fun. Everything is glistening. There's puddles. And it does start to rain, but she's oblivious. And then she comes back in and she realizes, oh no, I'm sopping wet. So mom, she always had extra clothes and always had, you know, she had the Girl Scout mentality, gets Jessie and everybody pitches in, fixes her hair, puts on new clothes. And her mother very carefully watches her after that, making sure that she's exactly where she's supposed to be. And her mother is very angry with her at first, but realizes that, you know, she should have had more supervision. But Jessie realizes that she needs to be patient, and it's not okay to do what you want to do when you have responsibilities.
Oh, is this a series of books?
It is. You know, I've got 10 books about many different children, many different ethnicities and genders. I've got bullies that are remorse girls that basically have grandmas that are failing. We call it Fanny's Granny. And her grandma is losing her memory, and they still love each other, and how they get through the illness together. And what I'm hoping to do is to reach that chord in both the adult and the child where we do make poor choices because we're human and we want to. And we don't want to always do what's right because it's not always what we want to do. So we just try to make it just a little bit more convenient for ourselves when in fact it does ruin things. And if you're a parent, you can relate to either being that child or raising one. I know that kid. Oh yeah, I got one of those. Or if you ever were like somebody like that, you say, yeah, you know, my mom was great. She got me out of all these situations. But it's the human element, and it's all told in rhyme. Because I think people get it better when it's told in rhyme because their ears and their vocabulary is listening to that. So it's not meant to make us feel bad for our poor choices. It's meant to kind of celebrate the fact that we were all kids and we all get it and we all get through it.
Did you have them just ready to go? Have you been writing these all along and just hiding them out somewhere?
I have like 10 to 12, and we're going as fast as we can getting them out.
Oh, geez. Good for you, Eileen. Great message for all of us. Lisa Pacino fit our interview in between medical procedures, and she finds time to write in the wee hours of the morning before her day even begins. Her sci-fi adventure is entitled A Change in Tactics Maiden Voyage, a voyage that started in college. Lisa.
Actually, yes. About 35 years ago, when I was in college, a couple friends and I wrote basically the prequel to this. It was never published. It was just something, you know, we wanted to do. And so 35 years later, I said, why not, you know, take the next generation and explore that story. So It just happened. I just started writing, and I was able to split it into 3 distinct sections. And so what you see is, or what you have is the first section.
Did you keep your notes from college?
I actually have the manuscript from college. I used basically the characters, I used their children for the future, for the one that's now.
Okay, so what's the story?
It's the beginning of a adventure for a young lady who's a doctor who decides to leave her comfort zone and explore life because she's been kind of trapped in a path that's been set for her since birth. And so she decides it's time to kind of break out of that shell and look for adventure.
She's on a scientific mission on a remote ice moon.
Well, she joins a military expedition to this remote ice moon, and during the training, her training shuttle crashes, and then in order to survive, she and the rest of her teammates have to come together as a team, and she has to step up and hopefully lead the crew out of this disaster.
And there's valuable lessons learned here, right?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to go outside your comfort zone, but you should maintain your ideas and your morals and your values. And being part of a team is extremely important, and everybody contributes no matter what your status is. And I think that, you know, you have to look at everybody individually and how they treat you and how you interact with them. I mean, part of what I do in medicine when we do procedures or we do colonoscopies, it's a team effort. You know, I may be the captain of the team, but everybody contributes, and that's what makes good patient care.
That is so true. And we've yet to mention that you are a gastroenterologist. I don't know how you find time to write.
First thing in the morning, after you kind of go through your inbox and make sure everything is set for the day, I write for about an hour in the morning from 5 to 6 in the morning.
And you're able to just be ready at 5 a.m. with your ideas.
Absolutely. Because what I do is I write a scene, whatever mood you're in for the day, you write that scene or you write that emotion because it's fresh in your mind and you have those feelings right at your fingertips. And then you kind of weave them into a story. I mean, I kind of have a direction that I was going, but I didn't plot it out. I kind of flew by the seat of my pants to do it.
Okay. Now, is this the first in a series?
It's part of a trilogy. And so this is her maiden voyage. This is where she starts out. This is where she cuts her teeth. She figures out what the military is all about and then goes on to explore life. But the book can stand alone.
All right, Lisa. Thanks so much. Robert Bryan spent 20 years with the NYPD, started as a transit cop, then wound up getting drafted into internal affairs. He went in as a lieutenant and squad commander in charge of sergeants that had way more experience than he did. This is the basis of his book. It's called C-Case, An Unlikely Journey from Transit Cop to Internal Affairs Bureau Squad Commander. Robert, you must have faced so many challenges.
The biggest challenge was the fact that now I could not go in there and say, hey, you know, do things my way because I'm the expert at this, because I wasn't, and I knew I wasn't. But I also had to make sure that it was my team and that I was running it at least administratively. And that's what I resolved. It came to grips with myself early on. And thankfully, I had a very good team. And I really kept the administrative function going, making sure cases got closed in a timely manner, because that's really the whole ballgame. If you're running with like 25 cases at one time, some of these cases could take months to work, but there's also ones that come in and you realize right off the bat, you know, you have a couple of days, do some preliminary work, and there's nothing there, and there's nothing that could be there. Even if it was a legitimate case, you're not going to find anything, so you have to close it and move on. Keeping, as I said in the book, the captain had said, the merry-go-round going, where people get on, like cases get on, but you have to get cases off that merry-go-round so that you keep it safe. You keep the caseload within a workable amount. And in doing that, though, I had the luxury of being the team leader, of working cases with these seasoned investigators and learning the business myself. That 2 years was the greatest learning experience I had in my 20 years.
So what was your intent in writing this?
You know, a good book is a unique story or a unique circumstance. And I feel that both of them existed here because there's a lot of books out there on police patrol work and even just detective work. But the actual circumstance of doing internal affairs work, when you're kind of like a fish out of water to begin with, you're coming from the transit police And now you're thrust into this role of a management position, doing investigations where you hadn't had the experience with it. I think that's why I wanted to do it.
It's to illustrate what that's like.
Yes.
And you feel like you did that?
Yes, I think I did. And I think also it's there's a lot of humor involved with it too. There's a lot of, in police work, there's a lot of humor that maybe sometimes it's humorous just to police officers, but there's a lot of kind of a tongue-in-cheek type of humorous aspect to some of this of the work that goes on.
So you want people to better understand, what goes on
Absolutely.
behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, is this it? Are you one and done?
No, actually I'm not. I don't know whether it was, I didn't take any kind of medication or anything, but all of a sudden I've started writing and I can't stop now. And, so I've got all kinds of other things that I'm planning on doing, but, it's this book I started many years ago, and it just seemed like it was work. I'm saying, why am I doing this and work? And I finally got it done, but now it's like the floodgates opened and I can't stop myself.
Yep, we got another one on the hook, Rob. A lot of first-timers say that, Robert. If it feels good, do it. That's what I say. And you know what? It feels like we need to take a very short break, but we are coming back, right back with more. Don't go anywhere. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Dr. Robert Abadi is a family physician headed for retirement and life as a writer. His book, Preyed Upon, is a sequel to his first book entitled Birds of Prey. And Robert, I'm going to let you bring us all up to speed here.
Preyed Upon, basically the hero in Birds of Prey becomes the protagonist in Preyed Upon. He becomes the anti-hero. It's the story of the fine line between revenge and morality. The main character felt in Birds of Prey, he was a police officer who hunted down a serial killer who ended up actually killing his own niece. And he felt he was betrayed by the federal law enforcement agencies. So he decides, after recovering from his wounds at the end of Birds of Prey, to seek revenge against those he felt basically betrayed him.
Okay.
And allowed the serial killer to continue his maddening killing of other people. And the book basically starts out with the assassination of a California Supreme Court judge. And they feel at the time that it's a hate crime because he's African American. But then with the killing of other FBI agents and other law enforcement agencies, they find out that it's probably something to do with the original serial killer from Birds of Prey. And they feel that maybe it's a partner that was unnoticed or unfound. The story goes on to basically go through how the anti-hero goes about his business, shall we say, and stays under the radar. He is supposedly almost my age, in his mid-60s, and most profilers will never think that a senior citizen can commit serial killings.
Does it end here, or is there another book after this?
No, this is the end. No, this is the end of this chapter of the books. The message is there's a fine line between revenge and morality, and some people, no matter how good they have been in their entire life, with certain circumstances, can turn. We're all capable of that if given the right circumstance. And being of Italian background, revenge is always sweet. I'm full-blooded Italian, so.
So you're all about that. So what inspired this plot?
Actually, I've read so many crime novels over my lifetime. And when I was younger, I lived through the Son of Sam catastrophe in New York. Mm-hmm. I was actually dating a brunette at the time, and I remember not being able to go out because you were worried that you were going to succumb to him. Mm-hmm. And David Berkowitz ended up living 2 blocks from where I was living at the time.
Where was that?
In Yonkers. Yeah, I was born and raised in the Bronx.
Yeah, it's just kind of reading all these crime stories and living through a real crime story that inspired
Right.
you to write this book. And you've been a doctor, so I would think you've been pretty busy. Did you just start writing recently, or
And I wrote during medical school, tried to publish at that time, but unfortunately, again, if you don't have a literary agent, it's kind of impossible to get something published.
right?
But I wrote as a release of stress. I would come home from work at night, sit at the computer, and start banging away. And my wife would look at me and wonder if she had anything to worry about. Like, she would ask me, "Do I know you?"
All right, so you really love to write,
Yes,
and you're going to keep writing.
yes. I actually have written a third book, and I'm working on my fourth.
All right, so are you going to stick with Page this time?
Yes, I am.
How come?
They've given me good service, plain and simple.
Good to know, Robert. And as you might have guessed, Robert's first book was published by another company, and the good news is that experience brought him to Page. Let's go on a journey to the center of the soul with Dr. G. Aldana, a retired aerospace engineer with a doctorate in economics and a retired pastor who felt compelled to write this book in a very unusual way.
Well, I was inspired to write that book when I went to a recovery meeting 3 years ago. At the recovery meeting, I was walking one of our dogs, and this very refined church lady, she said, "Are you a member of our church?" I said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "I'm at that meeting over there." And she said, "You're with those people over there." I didn't respond. I just kind of walked away. It was like God tapped me on my left shoulder, I remember. And I turned around and I said, "Yes, Lord." And he said, "I want you to write a book." He didn't tell me what kind of book. And he said, "I want you to write a book for those people over there that don't think they're these people over here." And these people over here in the recovery meeting were dealing with their bad habits, hurts, and hang-ups, and people usually in church do not. And so that whole book was inspired by God for those people over there in the church and other people that think they're different than us who are in recovery. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and so I'm learning some things that I was not taught in seminary. This book is kind of a bridge book. It gives all the tools that I've learned both in Celebrate Recovery and in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've also been a small group leader, so it's written for small groups in churches and goes through a step-by-step process teaching the principles and the tools that we use in recovery, both in CR, which is the Christian version of AA, and both in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's it.
So when you talk about tools, what kind of tools are you talking about?
It teaches the 12 steps on how to work them, because you can know the steps, but you got to know how to work them. A lot of writers, popular writers, put things in story form that make it easy to read and to follow. So mine is done that in such a way that people go on an actual camping trip with Jesus himself. They actually follow the book of Matthew as they're going through the recovery process, and Jesus becomes their facilitator. Instead of somebody like you or I facilitating the program and taking them through the questions and answers so they could learn how to use the tools, Jesus is camping out with them. So they're sitting around the campfire with Jesus, going through a day-by-day process with Jesus it's called 12 Days with Jesus. And the uniqueness of this book is Jesus is asking them the questions and facilitating with them and saying all the things that I would assume, I call it my holy assumptions, of what Jesus might ask if he was camping out with you and sat down with you and just got through doing a couple of miracles that you witnessed and then came over and asked you a set of questions that would help you deal with any hurt, bad habits or hang-ups that you want to deal with, but with the master himself.
All right, Dr. G. Interesting concept. Finally, Gilbert Smith was married to a twin, and if you think that spells double trouble, you're right. His book is entitled Oceans of Love 2. Gilbert.
Oh my gosh, they're another culture. That's one of the incentives for writing this book, that my life has not been what you would call, quote, normal.
Are they always in touch? Do they feel it when the other one's in pain? Is all that stuff true?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Does it make you feel like an outsider?
Well, I guess I overcame that because I was in love with her.
Are you still together?
No, both have passed away in 2006.
They both passed away the same year?
Yes. For me, it was a double whammy. It's a unique story, spanning 58 years of my life with her, interrupted by my service in the Korean War. And when I first met her, she was only 15 years old. And so I had to wait for her to get through high school and grow up. I was 18 at the time, which in that day and age was considered very old.
Yeah.
Being married to identical twins who are living together all their life, that's what they wanted to do, is really the part that makes my life quite unusual.
So when you came back from the Korean War, your wife and her sister were living with their mother.
Yes. Then her twin sister decides to get married. And so her husband lives with us also.
You didn't live like that forever, did you?
More or less, not really forever, but for quite a long, long time.
Did you both have kids?
No. Wife's twin did not have twins. Did not have children. So that made the living space a little bit easier. But it was an education on the unusual world of twins and the difficulty of getting along with them. Twins think of themselves as a unit, and they make decisions as the unit. And the other one is always thinking first of the other twin, and that works for both of them. And this is quite a different way of thinking. Now, they have a big difficulty in living with our world more than I had in living with theirs, because they live in a world that's surrounded by, quote, aliens, as far as they're concerned. The standard average person doesn't think or act like a twin. And
did you ever get them confused?
No, this wasn't possible. My two twins were totally opposite personalities. They couldn't possibly switch places and have that kind of fun that the average twin has. My wife was the extrovert, and her sister was an introvert.
Why did you decide to write this book?
In 1996, I had 5 bypass open heart surgery. And while I was recovering, I said, I think I'll write the story of my life. And as the manuscript expanded, all of my friends who read it said, wow, you should make a book out of this. Well, it took me a few years to do that.
Yeah, about 20 or something, right?
Right.
Listen, better late than never. Thank you, Gilbert, and thank you for joining us tonight. Me and Rob, we got to get out of here, but I hope you will come back again or download the show anytime you want at 710WOR.iHeart.com. Another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club will be ready before you know it. Have a